Hey, welcome to Coach Dave's Turn Academy at Sunny Breeze. Hope you all had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year coming up. That should be tomorrow or day after tomorrow. Enjoy the videos. Let me know what you think. Well, here we are, another beautiful day in paradise. Even though they're wearing sweaters, it's a really beautiful day, especially since it's right before Christmas. What I like to see with this golfer is a little bit more spine tilt away from the target line. The yellow line is what we call the power line. That's the line that she's going to try to turn past and put her spine on that line without bending over or falling forward. So I'm going to take this back. We'll swing it on an 8-speed swing. I like looking at the swing. Does pretty good till about there. Then all of a sudden you see that she's starting to collapse and her head's moving forward. She's actually tipping back over, what I call it a tip over swing, little tea kettle swing. And then she scoops the ball rather than rotates through with her arms. See how she's under the club right there? At that point now she should be well above the club with her trail arm. The elbows have come apart. There's not good extension. And she can't extend because she's not rotating the trail arm. Let's break this down into its parts. If we got the setup a little better so her head was a little bit further back, right now, if you notice on this angle that her head is almost in front of the golf ball. We like it behind the golf ball. We're going to start it back slowly. Pretty good takeaway right there. A good piece. She stands solid in her legs. Very nice to there, low and slow. She gets about to here, and then she starts getting kind of bent over. See right now where she's bending forward. Her head is moving forward. My grandfather used to always say, keep your butt out. Well, out in this case is that direction because her spine is turned, therefore her butt to be out and behind her needs to be pointing back towards her husband back there. Continue now. She continues to tip over, ends up with the head well in front of the golf ball. A lot of flexibility there, which is awesome. Now, if she'd have just turned so that her spine was on the yellow line, her hip was up against that, she'd be in a great position to really power into the swing. She's also a little tight in the wrists. Huge amount of arm turn, but no hinging of the wrist to speak of. Keeps tipping over. Now she's going to do a great shift here with the lower body. Notice how the lower body now is starting to work its way back into the target line. But unfortunately, the head is still too far forward, and it actually moves even further forward prior to impact. Great rotation though. Now let's see if she rotates her lower body. She does, rotates her lower body. Now at this point here, what we've already done is called casting. She's already lost the angle that needs to be in the club. The club should still be back this way. She's lost all of her power. Great speed, great torque, but because there is no conservation of angular momentum, you can look that up in the book, she's going to lose power. She's also going to make it so she has to scoop the club. Ready? I'm going to go forward now to try to move to impact nice and easy. You can see at impact, she's really rotated a long ways, but what we need to do is have her rotate so that you can see the glove fingers under the trail forearm. If we back up a bit, you'll see how the hands, I can see the fingers on both hands. Get that yellow line out of the way. When she's moved to that same position forward, when she's moved up to here, we want to see that same look. You can see she's not. She's actually casting the club. The club is passing her hands really early, and she's no longer pulling with the left arm or rotating the club over, so she's losing some power. Mechanically, it's a pretty good swing. I would change the setup position a little bit, work on rotating so I don't tip over, and then really work on letting the club head rotate like it was designed to do. Okay, we got a lot of stuff drawn in on this one. Obviously, the circle marks the head. We'd like the head to stay pretty much inside that circle. The white line connecting to the circle is roughly the spine angle. What I did is I went from his hip joint up to under his chin. And then the red line is the shaft angle, which is the swing plane as prescribed by the setup of the shaft. So we're going to go ahead and play this from here in slow motion. Let's see what goes on. See a little lifting going on already, right there. two things have lifted. The head is lifted up and the hands have lifted up. The hands are now well above the swing plane. The left arm is leaving the body, so it's moving away from the body, and he's over-rotated the club face. He hasn't turned enough yet to get the club face that pointed up. We'll continue it a little bit further. Now he's really up. Now he's got the club. Now right about there, he's got himself into a pretty good position again. Although his hand, you can see, is lifted up, his head is lifted up, I mean. And that's the reason his shoulders are no longer on the swing plane. The shoulders should be parallel to that red line. They should be that way. You can see how much he's lifted up. He hasn't turned the left shoulder down under his chin. It's above his chin level. And not only that, he raised his chin. So let's see what happens as we continue down with the golf swing. Now he dives his head back. Now he's got his head back where it was at setup, but unfortunately the hands have moved out and away. And the reason that's happening is because if you look at the leverage angle of his trail arm or his right arm, you can see that the elbow is not down, but out. So the power is being driven that way. That is not how we want to do it. We want the power to be pulled down if we can. So we're going to get him to work a little bit on dropping that club a little bit more into the slot. He's not in the slot. He's up and out of it. Now his head's back where he was. His spine's back where he was. Pretty good. Makes pretty good contact with his hands up a little high. But that's kind of an old-fashioned style swing, so we probably learned that before. Not bad contact. But now here's what happens. If I'm going to clear everything out of the way, at this point here, clear it all out, what you see is that the hands have moved an awful long ways. The arms have moved forward a lot, but there's been no shoulder rotation and no hip rotation. His body is pretty well locked in place. The shoulders are moving a little bit, but the hips still haven't turned. By this point, we should clearly see both butt cheeks or butt pockets, but we don't see any of them. We still don't. There, we finally do. So the rotation is very late. Again, a power robber. Now, physically, obviously, he can do that. So what a good motion is understanding what the motion's supposed to be and then putting the moving parts in the right sequence, called timing or rhythm and tempo. I would work really hard on swinging from the ground up rather than from the top down. The goal for this season for this golfer is to master the driver. Get as much yardage as you can. Now, he's a big, fit, athletic man. He's got tremendous flexibility, and he's really a pretty good golfer. What we're going to notice here is that he's got a really tough problem with getting his weight transferring onto the lead side, moving everything onto the front side. So what we're going to do is I drew a line. I didn't draw this line. This is a training aid. I put a stake in the ground. That's the stake that he's going to try to get his center of his body to through impact and finish with the whole right side even with that stake. That's his goal. So we're going to play from here, slow motion. We'll stop at the top. He doesn't have a long backswing, but he's got a tremendous amount of wrist hinge. He's in pretty good place there. Still very athletic. He has moved, if you look here, he's moved his knee a little bit outside from the setup position. We want the knee to stay inside, so you post it against it. You see how he's moving outside the setup position? Too much sway. Now, as he starts forward, we're going to continue in slow motion. Whoa, that wasn't slow motion. That was really fast, wasn't it? Back it up to this position right here again, and go slow-mo. And let's just watch the downswing. Good pull, good rotation, but no momentum forward. Now he finishes forward. So now his question is, and we go back to this a lot, motion and sequence. The motion was good, the sequence was out of order. He needed to be there earlier. So let's back up and find out where the sequence got himself into trouble. Right about here. You can see the arms are starting to come apart. He's hit the ball, or just about to hit the ball, but the hips haven't turned at all. By now, that right knee should be well on its way towards the left knee. So as he moves forward, notice he's not doing that. And why isn't he? He's not doing it because the left leg, see that, is straightened right up. He can't move on to the left side unless there's a little break there in the left knee. He's got to feel like he's pushing down, but really he's pushing up. So let's move forward a little bit. He's still posted against it. This is the kind of move that has hurt a lot of golfers. What you're seeing here is the left elbow pointing to the sky, the right elbow bent, the left wrist is completely bent instead of straight and long. His hands should be well out on this line out here somewhere, probably that far away from his body, which would match how far away from his body he is here. So he's pulling in, he's not getting that momentum forward, and it's all because he's not driving off the right foot, right knee, right hip, down and around his body. And he finishes there. So we know he has the physical ability to make that rotation. It's just the sequence of events again. If you do them out of order, they don't count. Al here has been playing some pretty good golf, but things kind of fall apart once in a while. A lot of it's rhythm and a lot of it's tempo. Now, tempo is how long it takes to swing. The rhythm is the sequence of events. We've been talking a lot about sequence here for the last few golfers. The problem with his sequence is he doesn't drop from the top, or his transition is a struggle. Let's go ahead and play the swing. He's in a pretty good setup, what I call a little bit bound up. He's not really smooth and relaxed. Good takeaway, go to the top. He's in a pretty good position now. Now, if we were to look at the swing, at this point now, the lever should be bringing the club straight down on the line of the golf shaft. So it should come straight down on that line right there. In order to do that, the right elbow has to move down to in front of the trail hip. Watch what happens now. We're just going to move it really slowly. 8th speed, he goes out. See how the hands went out? The hands are about 8 inches higher than they should be. The left shoulder's higher than it should be. He's already rotated his back away from the target. The back should still be at the target at this point. The hand should have dropped and the hips should have started to rotate open. Now he pulls up and out of the shot. That's been the killer him. He's been struggling with fat and thin, fat and thin. You can see what's happening is right here, he drops his hands, slaps the hands down into the shot, but he pulls up and out of it. You can see how far up and out of it he is. Then he pulls in because he's not rotating his lower body. He can't go anywhere. You can't see his hands ever. Well, yeah, finally. It's a little late. We're not getting a high, nice finish. So his hands get pretty good there, and he needs to swing through, but he can't because he's stepping up and out of the shot. So what I'd like him to think about is go to the top, drop down the white line, not out from the white line, and then toss the head of the club through to the target. I'm a firm believer in trying to work on one thing at a time. But sometimes the two things work together to make it more difficult for you to do either one of them well. And in DB's case, the issue is she has a tendency to want to move around a lot. So she was having a tough time keeping the triangle, which is the key, I think, to the golf setup. Whoops, that isn't very nice. The triangle is the shoulders and the arms, creating a triangle. The device she has is a ball that helps us keep that triangle intact by not letting our elbows come apart. So let's take a look. See how she does in super slow. Note how oh, look at that. That's the killer. She's keeping her arms in nicely, keeping the triangle built, the structure staying good, but the pivot point is all over the place. The pivot point is the neck, shoulders, head area. We need that to stay put. So pivot around the neck. You know, the tough part of that is that people have a tendency to get real stiff in the neck. You're an athlete, your head's going to move a little bit, but we want it to move in response to the body, not lead the body. This is one of our single plane swingers. He's been playing single plane for a long time. Mo Norman is what he patterned himself after, and now Bryson DeChambeau is doing that. But one thing we can clearly see is that the golf shaft is not running parallel to the underside of the trail arm, nor is it pointing up towards his lead armpit. That's going to create a problem to begin with. The other thing is that he's got his head down. I bet if he put his hands up a little higher, his head wouldn't be bent over so far. So let's see what he does here. Let's see if he's able to take that club directly back on that red line. We'll do the backswing in slow motion. And what we're going to look for, is there any extra movement going on? Oh, he's just getting comfortable. That happened. But he went right back to the same place. Now he's moving around a little bit. Still can't get comfortable. Probably not comfortable because he knows his hands are too. Now he's moving them up, moving them up. A lot of uncertainty, a lot of time over the ball. Generally, the body at rest wants to stay at rest, and that's been over the ball a long time. Now we're starting to take it back. Notice the hands are moving out and away from his body. When he gets back to here, we're going to see that the left arm now has left his body completely. It's way away from his chest. The club is going way to the inside of the single plane swing. Club face is wide open, really open at this point. He's lifted up. Now he's going to do a nice loop over the top and not make good contact. Now the reason that happens is because the loop is right here. Where else is he going to go? Obviously he can't come straight back to the golf ball from there. If he did, that club would swing on that line out that way. So what we've got to get him to do is get him back into the single plane setup so that he's on one line. Take the club back by turning the shoulders on plane with the red line, not above the red line, and then just go back and forth on the same line. Very relaxed. The less we do with our hands, the better off we are. When doing a little short chip like this, a lot of golfers really struggle on keeping their eyes focused on the bottom of the swing arc, where the club is going to bottom out. That's not necessarily focused on the ball. I think if we focus on the ball too much, we'll have a tendency to follow it with our eyes, maybe even our head, which is what this golfer has a tendency to do, and it really frustrates him when he does it. Let's go ahead and watch this swing at 8 speed. You'll see it's a really nice takeaway, good rhythm, good tempo, headstand just dead solid. But then as he comes through the ball, as he's making contact, everything goes with the golf ball. And then he kind of gets, you can see a little bit of frustration there. He didn't like that. Couple of rules of thumb in that. Look where the ball was and make sure the club never stops pointing at the ground. If we go back on the follow through, right here is where I would stop the swing. I want the club to point to the ground. And then I want it to point to the ground on the follow through. So I was stopped earlier. He got really way too big. And then I'd stop right here. Then he wouldn't move quite as much. And then he wouldn't be quite so frustrated. Okay, with Debbie here, we're working on quite a few things. She's new to the game. Her stance is getting better. A little too much flex in the knees. We want the knees to be out over the shoelaces. We'll draw a little line in here in white. The shoelaces are here. The knees should be there. She got a little too much bend in the knees. That would also get her butt out a little bit, get her leaning forward a little bit, and let her get her hands closer to her body or closer to her thighs. The other issue is she has this wandering head. It wants to go everywhere. So let's watch this in slow motion. There goes the head, almost right away in the swing. She's pulling her head back, away from the ball, up and out of it, standing straight up, then over the top, slams down, gets the head back in a pretty good spot and turns through. Great athleticism. Could you imagine how good she would be if she didn't have all of that extra movement that she needed to fix? The other thing we would like to see is the club staying a little bit more on the swing plane. We would like it to go back on the swing plane and then kind of up at about right here. So let's see what happens. It goes back on the swing plane, under, under, under. At this point right now, the club should be parallel to the ground. Drug it way back. Now she's lifting up, really behind her compared to where the swing is. Notice her shoulders are no longer on the plane. And then over the top, back to the impact position. Great athleticism. She's going to be so good when she gets rid of that extra motion. In my blog, I refer to the song One Trick Pony. You get so good when you got one trick without all that other herky-jerky movement. Here we have a golfer that has been struggling hitting the sweet spot on his irons. So what we did is we gave him an itty-bitty iron. If you look at that head down there, it's not a whole lot bigger than the golf ball itself. What he did within a couple of swings was able to make really solid contact. Let's go ahead and watch this in slow motion. See a fairly relaxed swing. Try to eliminate any tension on our swing at all. Good rotation, good plane, drops the club nicely on plane, pops a little up and out of it, makes really bang on solid contact. And look at that golf ball, that is dead straight. Back it up a little bit. He's coming in. There's no way you could get that too far out on the toe. Now that is his issue, out on the toe. So let's see if we can see why he might hit it out on the toe. We're going to draw on a couple of angles. We're doing red, the swing plane, and the arm angle. We'll put a little bit of a blue line on his spine. We'll do right up the back, where the belt loop is, right up the back. Now let's advance the club. Hands look pretty good. Oh, they're coming up a little bit, aren't they? That means they're also pulling away. Now at this point, he's in pretty good position. Now watch what happens to his spine angle. It's pulling away, isn't it? The hands are a little higher. That means the club is at a different angle. He's pulled away from the ball just an inch or so, no big deal, except the head of the club is only a few inches long. Got to keep our posture and our setup intact.